Russian President Vladimir Putin said that military spending will remain a priority when preparing the budget for the next 3 years, the Moscow Times reported. The publication shared that at a meeting with deputies of the State Duma of the 8th convocation, Putin accused the West of launching a Russophobic machine, world records in terms of sanctions, and said that no one and never would be able to break the people of Russia. Our political system and institutions of power are being formed on sovereign principles in full accordance with the Constitution of the Russian Federation and are ready to defend the country, capable, together with society, of resolutely repelling any hostile steps, the Kremlin leader said. In addition to strengthening the country's defense, the priority for the 2027 to 2029 budget, he said, should be solving priority social tasks. In June, Bloomberg sources familiar with the situation told Bloomberg that in the 2026 budget law, the government initially allocated 12.9 trillion rubles for national defense. However, the actual military budget will exceed the plan by 4 to 5 trillion rubles. According to them, in order to cover all the costs of the war, the Ministry of Finance is preparing a sequestration of civilian items and intends to raise 2 to 3 trillion rubles of additional debt. Janis Kluge, a researcher at the German Institute for International Security Issues, calculated, based on data from the Ministry of Finance, that actual budget expenditures for the war with Ukraine reached 5.9 trillion rubles in the first quarter. Compared to the same period last year, spending on the army and weapons production increased by 29.9%, compared to January-March 2024 by 68.7%, compared to 2023 by 129%, and compared to the first quarter of 2022 by 4.6 times, the article says. According to his calculations, the total costs since 2022 for the war with Ukraine have cost Russian taxpayers 53.079 trillion rubles, or $746.6 billion. It is noted that this amount covers 28 years of current budget expenditures on healthcare, 30 years of education expenditures, and 100 annual budgets of large regions such as Krasnoyarsk Krai or Sverdlovsk Oblast. Leading expert of the Central Committee of the Ukrainian Academy of Military and Defense Sciences Emil Ablayev noted that the priority of defense and security in the budget forces the authorities to be more selective in financing other areas. At the same time, he added that resources for filling the budget are being reduced due to the constant increase in the tax burden. Ablayev said that last year, despite the increase in income tax and disposal fees, budget revenues were 3 trillion rubles lower than planned, and this year the problems have intensified. In particular, the Ministry of Finance increased VAT to 22%, but the deficit already reached almost 6 trillion rubles in the first half of the year. The expert shared a forecast that by the end of the year the hole in the treasury could increase to 7 trillion. In addition, the publication reported that the Russian president signed a decree to increase the number of personnel in the Russian armed forces by 25,000. This is stated in an official document published on the Legal Information online portal. The publication emphasized that this is the second increase in the past 2 months. It explains that the previous decree of June 12 set the number of military personnel at 1,510,000, while the new one, dated July 27, brings this figure to 1,535,000. The total staff strength of the Russian armed forces, according to the new decree, is set at 2,426,130 people, while the previous one was 2,399,130, the article says. The publication noted that the document explained that the changes were related to the creation of military construction units within the army. The document comes into force on August 1, 2026. The government is instructed to provide for the allocation of the necessary budget appropriations from the federal budget to the Ministry of Defense. According to the publication, this is the 6th increase in the Russian army's staff since the start of the full-scale war in Ukraine. Putin previously signed similar decrees. Media previously reported that, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, North Korea plans to send tens of thousands more troops to Russia to support the war against Ukraine. The media shared that, probably, we are talking about 30,000 troops. Senior researcher at the Korean Institute for National Unification Oh Kyung-seop did not rule out such a development. He explained that this will be a mutually beneficial agreement for both countries. The expert added that North Korea thus gives Russia an economically profitable way to replenish its army, while Pyongyang receives money and military technology. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian President Vladimir Putin may mobilize an additional 300,000 to 500,000 people to fight against Ukraine. In excerpts Zelensky posted Monday on social media from an interview with Britain's Sky News, he said Putin is not ready to stop this war. Citing Ukrainian intelligence, Zelensky said Putin plans to launch the mobilization after Russia holds parliamentary elections in September. He added that the new troops could be called up from the beginning of October. Zelensky said that could happen unless Ukraine disrupts Russian logistics and supplies of weapons and fuel, and unless Western partners impose what he called total sanctions on Moscow. He also said Putin would be unable to train the new recruits quickly and would throw poorly trained people on the battlefield. He added, this, in turn, means a lot of losses. Zelensky earlier suggested that Russia is running short of military personnel. He said that in less than 7 months this year, Russian casualties have outstripped the more than 220,000 people who joined the Russian military during the same period. But political expert Vadim Denisenko believes that this expansion of the conflict could provide an opportunity to initiate negotiations, as grain shortages could force great powers to consider localizing the war. In his column, he explains how this situation affects Trump's position ahead of negotiations with China and the challenges facing the Ukrainian government. Expanding the war as a chance for productive negotiations. The strikes on the Caspian Sea oil platform, the halting of Kazakh oil transshipment in Novorossiysk, the Black Sea blockade for Ukraine, and the upcoming Black Sea blockade for Russia are transforming our war from a local conflict into a global one. And this is our chance for peace. 1. Until 2026, our war was a local conflict, which all the world's powerful countries tried to keep just that, local. And the main goal of this localization was to weaken Russia and prevent the spread of military problems to other countries. 2026 breaks this pattern. And the final turning point could occur within the next 2 months, when Ukraine finally closes the Black Sea to Russia. 2. It should be noted right away that a number of powerful countries, which do not want excessively high global grain prices, may oppose this scenario, closing the sea to Russia. Just to put it into perspective, of the major countries, only the United States is a significant grain exporter. China and the Middle East are the largest grain consumers, and India is a major producer, but significant export volumes are only for rice. Turkey suffers significant financial losses due to the disruption of Ukrainian and possible disruption of Russian cargo flows. 3. Simply put, if we do indeed block the Black Sea for Russia in the coming months and make the Caspian too risky a route, this will lead to a global grain shortage. And there's a chance that this will force some of the great powers to consider, at a minimum, localizing this war. 4. One important fact deserves special attention. This situation could become a kind of trump card in Trump's hands ahead of the US-China negotiations. Again, the US is one of the world's largest grain exporters, and China is highly dependent on stable grain supplies. Normalizing this issue could become a subject of negotiations between Trump and Xi. It's not a given that this will happen, but it could. 5. Zelensky's visit to Washington will essentially focus on 2 topics, weapons and the upcoming negotiations. The escalation of the war, which has already become a reality, is a compelling argument in our negotiating position, and it provides an opportunity to make compelling arguments against Trump. But we must also understand that our economy is also at stake. The blockade of Ukrainian exports is the main challenge for the new government. And the Prime Minister must take responsibility for this,